Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, in case you missed it, Operation Dudula burst onto the scene with a clear objective and to get rid of all foreign nationals living in Gauteng and the rest of the country. They have stirred up controversy with their actions by taking the law into their own hands. While they have gained supporters, they've also gained many detractors. They have now decided to become an official political party, and this decision comes with the country gearing up for elections next year. The question now is, can the same success they used to take a stand against illegal foreigners be translated into seats in parliament? And if it does, what will it mean for foreigners? Let's unpack this with spokesperson for the Kopanang Africa Against Xenophobia. His name is McKinley. Dale, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you have some concerns, or many concerns. Maybe I shouldn't even be using the word some. I'm sure you have very many concerns about Operation Dudula making it to the ballot box.
Yes, we do, obviously. I don't think we're the only ones. I think that should be a general concern in our country when an organization whose sole purpose, as you mentioned, and as just confirmed by their spokesperson the other day, is to expel all so-called illegal foreigners from this country. I think we should all be concerned. What we've seen in Europe, what we've seen in the United States with this kind of politics is not pretty. It basically is a politics of division, of hatred based upon nationality under the guise of an anti-criminal kind of campaign. So yes, there is concern. I think the other issue at stake here is not just a political concern or a moral concern, but also is the issue of the registration of Operation Dudula as a political party vis-a-vis the Electoral Code of Conduct. The Electoral Code of Conduct in our country is very clear. And I'm just reading it from here. Basically, it says the very first point in the code is not allowed to use any language which provokes violence, among many other things. So there is a question mark in relation to whether or not the IEC has applied its mind in relation to the registration of Operation Dudula, in relation to its own utterances and behavior, and whether or not it is in violation of the Electoral Code already.
And, you know, when it comes to, for instance, the elections and what kind of political parties do register, with this particular political party, Dale, would you not agree that this is as a result of a trust deficit with the systems that are supposed to work? Because how do I, as an ordinary South African, act as law enforcement and go and choose who's here legally or not?
Yeah, listen, I think as we've said as Kopanang and many others, that the grievances that ordinary people in this country have, poor people, people who live in informal settlements, those that have been left behind, are legitimate. These are very real concerns. The problem is when people take advantage of those concerns and that desperation and the failure of our government at every single level, in most cases, to deliver the basic services to take care of their population. So what we have is a real issues that cannot be dismissed. And then we have a politics that takes advantage of that. And in that context, what we've seen is, unfortunately, when that comes up to the surface, we've seen other institutions of the state, the Department of Home Affairs, the police that you've mentioned, members of that basically turning a blind eye and saying, well, we're not going to deal with this because maybe they agree with some of those politics, but also because they're afraid to act against people who have been quite vociferous and quite using intimidation. So it is a concern. It's not just about Operation Dudula. It's about a politics of fear and intimidation that seems to have become quite mainstreamed in our society of late.
So would you also be one of those people who call Operation Dudula a vigilante group?
Well, I think that parts of Operation Dudula have certainly been that. I mean, there was a BBC documentary that was just flighted the other day followed Operation Dudula around, where they were engaged in clearly vigilante activities, preventing pregnant mothers from going to clinics because they were of foreign nationality, evicting people without the police being there, with no authority to do so, basically taking the law into their own hands. So they have said, as they've registered this political party, that they are going to, quote, I quote their spokesperson, demilitarize. And they're going to change their tactics. Well, we'll see if that is the case. But so far, in most cases, most of those who have experienced the sort of raw hand of Operation Dudula on the ground have experienced that fear, intimidation, and vigilante type tactics from some of their members. That is for sure.
Well, you know, they would probably come to you and respond by saying, look, we're not going after those who are here legally, but we have laws in our country, and we just want things sorted with regards to those who are not here legally. And, you know, for them, I think maybe their concern is that if you're here illegally, then you cannot be traced. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. What would be your response to them?
Yeah, we have responded publicly and very clearly to this. First of all, according to our Constitution, nobody is illegal in this country. In that context, you have undocumented individuals. And we need to be very clear about the difference between these two things. Because if we take the numbers, there are as many, if not more, undocumented South Africans than there are foreign nationals in our country. There are hundreds of thousands of South Africans who have no documentation, that have been the subject of some of the same kinds of harassment and intimidation. The reason why many foreigners are undocumented is not because they choose to do so. It's not because they are criminals. It's not because they have engaged in criminal activity. It's simply because the Department of Home Affairs has a dysfunctional immigration system, and we know this. It's full of corruption, and if you have money, you can buy your permits. If you don't, well, bad luck, especially if you're poor and from another African country. So while we have a problem of those who might be criminals and might be illegals who are from other countries, as well as from our own country, that is a criminal problem. That's not an immigration issue, and it's not something to base a politics on, to then say to everybody who's here to try to escape political persecution or economic misery that they are illegal and they are criminal and they must be deported. That's the politics of fear and division. That's the politics of Trump, of the right wing in Europe. And it's very disconcerting that in this day and age, we have even members of the ruling party, the ANC, which was based on a Pan-Africanism and a breaking down of borders, that they are endorsing this as well.
Dale, thank you very much for speaking to us about this very important topic. It's going to be a very interesting few months in terms of all the political parties that will be making promises to you and I in the next few months, just for us to put that X on their faces or political party flags on that ballot paper. Spokesperson for the Kopanang Africa Against Xenophobia, Dale McKinley.